Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Fighter Weapons School scenario in Command. And I've already gone over the mission briefing and the overview and shown you what the plan was in the last video, so let me go ahead and just get into the execution. I've got Nellis Air Force Base selected. I'm going to go to the Air Ops screen and start getting these aircraft airborne. I'm going to use a combination of different techniques to do this. Like, for example, for my air-to-air aircraft, I'm going to just launch these as two groups of 2 aircraft each and allow them just to get airborne. That will have them just holding here over Nellis until I manually grab them and start to send them in different directions. For the other aircraft, my 2 GBU-10 loaded aircraft and my 2 Mark 20 Rockeye loaded aircraft that are going to do the strike on the revetments and the seed strike on the SA-3 site, I'm going to do them a little bit different. I'm going to assign them to missions that I'm going to build right now. So I've got the SAM site selected, Control F11, and I just called this one Seed. Very, very creative, I know, but I have the option here of actually making this a Seed Patrol and letting the, I guess, built-in Seed AI take over, but I'm going to make this more like a pre-breach strike against the SAM site. So it technically is a Seed, or I guess technically is a DAD, Destruction of Enemy Air Defenses type mission, but it's going to use the basic strike setup. So strike, land strike, okay. And the only thing for now I'm going to change here is to enable the auto planner, so it's going to plop down a course as determined by the AI on the map, and once they get airborne, then I'll be able to adjust their course and make it match what my overall mission plan was for these aircraft. Now I'm going to select the revetments and do the same thing for them. Another ultra creative name on my part, Strike is the name of the strike mission, and it's a land strike, okay. And all the revetments are listed in the target list. I'm going to enable the auto planner and leave all the other stuff as is. Now you notice that I'm not assigning the aircraft to the missions just yet. The way that I'm going to play this is, and let me exit out of this real quick and kick the simulation off. The way that I'm going to play it with those strikes is that I'm going to wait until I'm ready for them to start taxiing and get airborne before I assign them to the mission. If I just assign them to the mission right away, they're going to taxi and get airborne right away, and I want a little bit of a delay between the fighter aircraft getting up into the area and performing their fighter sweep and the strike aircraft and seed aircraft getting airborne. So at this point, I'm just waiting for the aircraft to taxi, and I'll come to the air ops screen just to kind of keep an eye on things. So these guys are, I'll start it back up again, it automatically pauses. These guys are taxiing, minute 36 seconds until they're ready. I'm going to hit it with a little burst of 5 times time acceleration just to get these guys airborne. And I've got both of those flights airborne, and I'll just leave it running in real time now and do a little bit of cleanup work and organization work right here. I'm just going to rename these guys as Reno 1 and Reno 2. Okay, there's Reno 1. And there's Reno 2. Reno 1, I'm going to have as my high fighters. They're going to come up here at about 40,000 feet and try to draw the enemy up towards them. So let me just put them down a basic flight path, starting there, then cutting around to the north and then to the southwest into the target area. And we're just going to leave them at their default cruise setting, and they're going to, by default, be up at high altitude, 40,000 feet. Okay, so that's Reno 1. Reno 2, I'm going to have them trailing slightly, so let me put a little, just a quick little zigzag into their path to give them a little bit of separation. And I'll have them on more or less the same path as Reno 1, but I'm going to have these as a low stack of fighters. The idea being to have them hidden and kind of out of sight, so that as Reno 1 starts to engage fighters in the target area, hopefully Reno 1 can draw them off to the northeast, and that'll allow Reno 2 to swoop in and just kind of surprise them from behind. Whether or not that's going to work, I have no idea, but that's the plan anyway. So, okay, that is executing nicely, so I'm going to give them about, I don't know, 5 minutes of real-time flight time. Let me come to the waypoint view real quick, and it's 9 minutes until this waypoint. So once the fighters are about 3/4 of the way up there, I'll give them about 5 minutes. Then I'll get my strike aircraft airborne. So I guess now would be a good time, in fact, to hit it with just a little bit of time acceleration. In a small scenario like this, it it doesn't hurt. I don't like to, as you know, I like to kind of savor these things, so I don't like to time accelerate anything if I can help it. And let me see, I don't like the timing on that. I'll give them a little bit more separation and get them into the area a little bit more before I get the strike aircraft up. So one more little burst, and right about there. Now I want to get my strike aircraft into their mission. So I come up here to the mission editor, and for the strike, actually let me get the seed airborne first, and then I'll wait 2 minutes and then get the GBU-10 aircraft up. So I've got Blackjack 3 and 4 assigned to the seed mission. I exit out and they're just automatically, this one going to start the taxi. And I know there are actually more efficient ways to do all this stuff, but this is the way that I'm doing it for now, because it's really what I'm comfortable with. And there have been so many just quality of life improvements with the air operations in the last few patches, particularly this one. So there is a lot of new stuff here that I just haven't fully figured out to this point. Okay, so that's running okay. Reno 1, let me go ahead and get your radar up and running, because I initially had the radar off just so that I don't alert the enemy to their presence and give them any kind of a clue what type of aircraft are up. But now I want Reno 1 to be radiating and making their presence known, just so that they can maybe try to have some of those fighters vectored up into this area, then I can try to spring that little trap on them. Okay, so you can see the cone of the radar that they have out there going. And the radar on the F4, of course, is the, let me see, what was that? I say of course, as if I know that off the top of my head. APQ 120 on this F4E model, 60 nautical mile range. And we also have the ASX1 TISEO target identification camera. So that's what they have right now looking in the area. And right now, in fact, Reno 1 and its radar is really the only thing that's looking right now. I don't have any kind of like an AWACS aircraft or even a early warning radar on the ground. I just have Reno 1 and their radar for now. Now, I could have done a lot of different things tactically with this mission. I could have had all the Reno, or both the Reno flights with their radar up, just looking in the area for fighter opposition over a wider part of the area. But yeah, there's just no limits to the different ways and different techniques that you can establish to run a simple mission like this. There is no wrong, or, well, I guess there are some wrong ways to do it, and I guess I'll find out if this is one of them, but there's not necessarily a right way to do this. Okay, so they're just going to continue up in that direction, and I don't know if I mentioned this during the first video, but I am playing it extremely fast and loose with the use of the Nellis and Nevada Test and Training Range airspace. There are a lot of places on the range where you'll just kind of not fly, and we're getting kind of close to one of them right here down at the container over the Groom Lake facility. So I think they are far enough north. Yeah, I think that's the town Rachel or Rachel, or however you actually pronounce it. That's where all the kooks live that are like big into the UFO thing right there. You can see the farms right there by the town. It's a landmark that will be really, really evident, seeing these just big giant circles, green circles out there with the farms in the area. So once we get the terrain in DCS, I'm sure that'll be kind of a good navigation aid for us. And it's really surprising how much there is up here, how much civilization. I mean, not much at least, but you know, I had always envisioned this area as just being completely barren and devoid of life, but we have farms down here, little communities all over the place. I mean, granted, it's not exactly a metropolis, but it's not quite as barren, and there are a lot more restrictions on the use of the airspace than I was expecting once I started to look into it and start to do more research on the area. Okay, so these guys, I think I want to have them come more or less due west at this point to get a little bit more visibility into the target area itself. So they're going to come over here due west, and yeah, that's a good plan right there, and then cut around to the southwest a little bit more to see what else they pick up. I would expect maybe to start picking stuff up right now. One thing that I am really, really pleased to see is that radar cross-section for the different aircraft is modeled. And it's very, very detailed. I haven't even wrapped my head around yet what all's going on here, but there are forum posts with spreadsheets, and it gets into a lot of detail. The PRF, pulse rate frequency, pulse width, and antenna gain, and all the good electromagnetic stuff is modeled. And even though aircraft might be within the cone of the F4's radar, the F5 that I'm expecting to go up against is small enough that depending on the aspect, it may not show up just due to radar cross-section limitations, since it is a smaller aircraft. So if it were coming directly at me, for example, I don't have as large area to pick up on as I would have for, say, a B-52 flying right at me. It's very, very neat to see that model, and it opens up all kinds of possibilities for strike packages into heavily defended areas. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this game simulation some more. Okay, so I've got my seed flight up. Let me go ahead and rename these guys as Blackjack 1. Okay, and I need to get the strike package up. I might have waited about a minute later than I intended to, so okay, these two F4s with the GBU-10s are going to start taxiing, and they'll get airborne as well. Now, Blackjack, okay, they assigned a path that is more or less what I had in mind. I'm just going to bring these guys around here to the south. I'll bring my IP a little bit around to the south as well, and they'll egress. Yeah, that's a good plan right there. Have them egress in the direction of the fighter cover, and then come back to base at whatever point that I want them to. Speaking of that, let me disable RTB with Winchester for all these flights. I'll go to no right there. And this is one thing that I usually do if it's a small scenario like this and I'm micromanaging it, just so that when they expend their primary munitions, they don't just turn around and make a beeline straight for Nellis. I think I'll be able to catch anything, and before that happens anyway, but I might be able to make some better use of these aircraft, just having them stay in the area and not just automatically RTB. Now, Blackjack 1, I also want to adjust your height to low altitude. Maybe I should have caught that a little bit earlier, although, like I was saying, with the way things are modeled here, even though Blackjack 1 is technically within the ring of the search radar for the SA-3 site, even if the SA-3 site were radiating right now, which I'm not getting any kind of like an indication off of the RWRs from the Renos, but if they were radiating, that doesn't necessarily mean that they would be able to pick up Blackjack 1 even if it were up at high altitude at this range, but that doesn't necessarily mean they wouldn't be able to do so either. It just depends. And one other thing, another little quality of life thing that I do sometimes in small scenarios, I'm going to enable data blocks so that I can at a glance see the call sign, the course, and the airspeed and altitude for these flights as we go. Okay, so getting over here into the SA-3 area, into the target area, still haven't picked up anything on the radar, so they'll continue forward for another. I've got to find a better way to get the information. There's just so many different places and different interface options that sometimes getting the information that you want just at a glance at a specific time is a little bit difficult. That's all I wanted to see right there, was the distance to the next waypoint and the time to go. So, okay, got that. And at this point, okay, I'm going to have them go ahead and come due south just briefly, just to have a quick glance down here at the south, clear the area out for Blackjack 1, make sure that nothing else is coming up on these guys. Reno 2, yep, you're still fine. There we go, bogey 6 identified, APQ 120, 35 miles out. Now, I know these guys are going to be hostile. I don't have any friendly aircraft up here. I'm not going to play the rules of engagement so tight. It's not going to be like a Vietnam scenario where I have to go in and visually ID, although if the ROE calls for that, like in the Vietnam scenarios, the downtown scenario, for example, then I would, but I'm going to declare this guy hostile right now. But actually, let me pause briefly, and there are just so many things in the interface that you can do here. I'm going to go to the doctrine window, and what I want to do is adjust the weapons release authorization. This is something brand new on 1.07, that's why it didn't occur to me to do that until just now. I'm going to adjust the range at which it's going to fire the AIM-7. So by default, it's going to fire at the max aerodynamic range, which is about 50 miles, depending on the altitude. I'm going to adjust that down to about 30 nautical miles, and doing it right here for aircraft unspecified, just blanket changes that for all the different types of aircraft contacts. That way they won't just be spamming missiles out there at max range, they'll fire closer to the optimum range and have a higher probability of getting a kill. So I wanted to do that before I declare this guy hostile, because these guys are just going to, at this point, start acting on their own. Okay, we've got the, what is that, the targeting vector, or I've got the dashed red line telling me that these guys have this locked up as the target. Okay, we've got some AIM-7 Sparrows in the air. Okay, so I've got one more contact out there. I'll declare him hostile as well. And, okay, contact bogey 07. Got it. Okay, at this point, Reno 2, going to have you cut down to the southwest a little bit more and just be in position to support if needed. But, okay, these guys are turning away as if they're not going to turn to engage. I'm sure they know they have missiles coming at them, so... Okay, new contact, bogey 08. Okay, I'm going to declare you hostile, and you're heading west to east. Okay, so this is shaping up okay now, and your altitude's 16,000 feet. Your altitude, I think you were at higher altitude actually. Your altitude is... No, actually, you're down way low, so a combination of very low and medium altitude contact so far. Okay, AIM-7's still flying through the air. And... Okay, another missile launch off of probably Reno 1-1, or actually Reno 1-2, the wingman. It looked like that's where it came from this time. Okay, and these missiles are all on, let's see, these two targets. And I've got it set up also. I think the default for AIM-7s is it's only going to fire one missile per target. So it's going to, by default, conserve missiles. If I wanted to be very, very aggressive on this, I could also set it up using that weapons release authorization interface that you just saw to, for example, fire 2 missiles at each contact. Okay, so it looks like we're coming into a impact, or hopefully an impact on these aircraft, and it looks like this guy is just kind of hanging out there going west to east, and this guy needs to be the next priority for the Reno flight. But with the AIM-7, they have to maintain a radar lock for the entire time of flight for the Sparrow missile. Okay, first Sparrow missed. Okay, looks like we got a missile launch on bogey 8, so... You know, you could set this thing up to run entirely automatically, do all the setup work beforehand, and then just hit start and let it go if you wanted to. And on some of the larger scenarios, that's the ultimate goal, is to do that. But, okay, as these are in the air, let's have a look at what happened there, and this is the interesting part of this. This is what I love about the details built into it. So on that first Sparrow, the AIM-7 went after the F5, had a base probability of hit of 70 degrees, adjusted for distance, 51%. So there's that distance factor that I was talking about. Okay, that's a miss on that one. I'll switch over to this one. Okay, 57%, adjusted for target speed, 58%, adjusted for agility of the F5, 3.5, and for the skill level, which adjusted down to 2.8, high deflection impact, which had no effect on the agility, final agility modifier, minus 28%, probability of hit final, 30%. So all these factors go into it. It's everything that you would think of if you were like in a flight sim situation, thinking about, okay, is this a smart shot to take or not? All those little things that kind of go through your mind, you know, whether you realize it or not mathematically, is modeled here. Okay, these guys are turning to engage. At this point, once this final missile disengages, I want to bring Reno 1 up to the north. This might not work out for timing. Okay, I got another bogey up here. I'll mark him hostile. Okay, I wanted this missile to impact first. He's already fired another one. I've got Reno 2 engaging. Reno 2, why are you engaging? Okay, well, that blows the entire plan, actually. But that's fine. Let me just go ahead and go radar active by default on this guy. And let me go ahead and remove the restrictions on altitude. I'll set you to auto and just let you do your thing. So it looks like they have fully engaged on this air battle, which is just as well. My goodness. Okay, to clear these guys hostile. Okay, Blackjack 1, you're still okay. You're still at low level. And Blackjack 2. You're still doing fine, but let me take you down to low level as well and keep you out of this fight if I can at all help it. It's still working out. I've got the fighters coming up and engaging my F4s. So that's fine. Yeah, Reno 1, that's ideal for you to be going north at this point because I don't want you to get down here and get flanked by all these fighters in this area. So, folks, I think this is a good time to take a break. Let me hit pause right here. And I say it's a good time to take a break because from here on out, it's just going to be a non-stop air-to-air battle. So if I don't take a break here, it's going to be another 20 or 30 minutes before I can take a break. Plus, I'm at about as clean a tactical position as I'm going to be for the rest of the mission. Now, let me just, while I'm right here, show you what I would envision things working out as from here. So the plan from here, Reno 1 is going to come up here to the north and engage these bandits. That's the best thing Reno can do right now, because if they come in from the south, they've then got this one that can come around and flank them, these two that are head-on, these two that can flank, and these two that are just going to come in from behind. It does leave Reno 2 to possibly engage these bandits if that does happen, but that's not a smart thing to do. I want to keep Reno 1 and 2 from the middle of this big fur ball, and also bring them up to the north to clear the path for Blackjack 1 and Blackjack 2. So looking at the situation, we've got about a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on 4 situation, F5s versus F4s. Now the big advantage the F4s are going to have in this case, and let me go to the database entry for the F5 real quick. And I had to do a little bit of detective work going back in the message log to figure out what model of F5. So F5E, I've just got, for example, the Iranian variant of it up right here. The advantage that the F4 has over the F5, in addition to a longer range and better, well, I say better, really all I mean by better in this case is a longer range on the radar, and also the beyond visual range capability of the F4, because all the F5E models have are AIM-9s and 20mm gun. So assuming we don't run out of Sparrows to shoot at these F5s and we can just stay at long range and don't get in there and mix it up in just a one-on-one F4 versus F5 turning battle where it's AIM-9 against AIM-9 and gun against gun and aircraft against aircraft, we're going to be fine. So I'm just going to manage this so I don't get myself into a close range engagement, and I think this will work out just fine even if we are outnumbered, well, at this point almost 2 to 1. But if all else fails, and that's another advantage of the F4, I could always have Blackjack 1 and 2 fight their way in the air-to-air realm and take those long-range AIM-7 shots. Even though they are tasked against the ground targets, they still have that capability if Reno 1 and 2 just get completely annihilated in this battle. But I think things are shaping up okay, so that's the plan. I am going to take a break just to give myself a little bit of a break and to come back fresh once we get deeper into the engagement. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time.